Today we're going to take a look at, well, what can only be described as a monster. This is the X15 Plus from Miller Kreisel, and if you like big bass, this is the one for you. Before we get started, if you're into tech, hi-fi, or movies, be sure to push the subscribe button for new weekly videos. Usually at this point, I'll do a little unboxing montage, but since this is a review sample and it's been through a number of people before me, the box isn't all that pretty. So needless to say, what you get in the box is a subwoofer, some instructions, a grill, and a power cable. That's it, right? And well, that's really all you need. The first thing to understand about this subwoofer is that this thing is a sealed double 15 box. Now, this uses what's called the M&K iconic push-pull subwoofer architecture and reverse double driver non-isobaric configuration, right? That's a mouthful, but it basically means there are two subs, they are in push-pull, and they're both exposed to the air. And the way that they do this is there's one subwoofer that's kind of bottom mounted with the motor hanging out of the bottom of the subwoofer, and then the other is in the normal front-loaded position. We'll measure the sub here in just a bit, but you can see all of the specifications here on the screen. Some things to keep in mind is that this is a big box, right? So you're looking at 32 by 20 by 18 and a weight of 134 pounds. So in no way is this thing small, and you're going to need yourself and a friend and maybe another friend to move it around and get it into position. And if you need to go up and down stairs, well, good luck, because I had to do that twice and it was not fun going up or down. But once you get this thing in place, the fun does begin. Now let's talk about what's on the rear of the subwoofer, and this is where all the action takes place. There is no app for this sub, so everything you need to set needs to be manually set on the back. Starting on the left, you have your phase control, and that runs from 0 to 180 degrees. Next up, we've got your crossover. There are three different settings for this. There's a fixed 80 Hertz low pass. There's a variable low pass that has settings all the way from 50 to 125 Hertz, and then a no low pass THX mode, which means it doesn't apply any crossover at all. Continuing from there is a EQ switch, and there are two different options that you can select: the THX bass EQ and the anechoic MK EQ. We'll look at both of these in our measurements section so you can see exactly what they do. Then finally, on the right-hand side, there is the volume controller, what they call the bass level reference. There's a THX fixed setting and then a variable setting. So if you want to be able to adjust the volume, make sure you put this in variable mode and then twist the knob. Underneath all of these settings are balanced input and output for both left and right, and then a set of RCA in and outs. Now let's take a look at these measurements for the MK15 Plus. The first thing we need to talk about is the distinction between the two different EQ modes. What you're looking at here is the THX bass EQ, and then the green is the anechoic EQ, right? And it looks like they just have some type of slight crossover that pushes everything down, starting way up here at about 63 Hertz, and then slowly widening the division all the way down to the bottom at 10 Hertz here. And we can see that we're looking at about 86 versus 92, so that's about 6 decibels down at 10 Hertz, and you can see how it gets narrower and narrower as it moves all the way up. So that is the difference between the two different curves. So if you want this thing to give you the most output, that's going to be the THX bass EQ, and then if you look at the anechoic EQ, I think that is probably a more linear EQ. So you know, it really depends what you're doing. If you're going to put your room curve in with something like a mini DSP, then maybe the anechoic EQ is the right one to use. But if you're not using anything like that and you just have one or two of these installed, I would probably go with the THX bass EQ. Since those numbers are higher. Those are ones I'm going to look at for the curves here. So let's get into the output of this, right? So way down here, I've got my processor set at 40 volume, and we'll go up 5-ish decibels on each setting. Then we go up to 45, and you can see at the low volumes, my microphone's not really doing cool things under 20 hertz, but it does get a little bit better as we move up. So we'll go up to 50, and you can see things are smoothing out. 55, 60, 65, we're already looking at 70, 75. Everything's pretty linear here. And, I want to point out, this thing is strong from 20 hertz down. Now we're getting some room gain in here, but this is strong, right? There is a lot of output down there at the bottom. This is set at 80, and then, all right, 85. This is where things get squirrely, is my technical term here. And what really happens is this is where the amplifier starts to limit things, right? So it says, hey, hold on now. You might cause some damage, so we're going to slow your roll. I think there's more in this sub if that limiter wasn't in place, but functionally, this is kind of the top end of where you get to before it starts protecting itself and making sure things don't sound bad, right? So, I pushed on beyond this, but it pins it down to that area. So I'm going to call this the top end of the free action in my room. Now remember, this is with the sub against the wall, and then the microphone in the captain's position, so to speak, and that's about probably 8-ish feet away from the front of the subwoofer. And you can see that this bad boy is putting out 102 decibels at 14 hertz. That's a lot of bass, right? That's a ton, right? That's the technical term, a ton of bass. And, at no time did it sound like the subwoofer was in any kind of peril. It didn't sound like it was struggling. It sounded very, very nice. Up here, this is all room-induced stuff. So, the curve is going to be something slightly rising like this, and it would be quite smooth if measured in an anechoic chamber. We've got 3 pretty interesting demos for you today, and we're going to start out with one that you probably aren't familiar with. This is actually from YouTube, so the source material isn't awesome, but this is a bass-boosted version of Enya's Only Time, and this thing is absolutely thunderous. This next scene is from the first Matrix movie. This is playing off of Kaleidoscape, and this is a scene where the helicopter unleashes hellfire with extremely large bullets. This last scene is one of my favorites. It's the opening of Blade Runner 2049, the eyeball scene as I call it. It's a crowd pleaser, and the bass energy is just fantastic. Now it's time for the final word. Now, it's obvious from the measurements in the demo that this is a beast of a subwoofer. It is stupendous, right? It is everything that you could want from a subwoofer in a single package. It's really, really awesome. It's THX Dominus rated. That means that it has the highest rating from THX. So they agree with me that this thing is just an absolute monster, right? And I like that it is sealed. Both sealed and ported have their place, and in a world where you have enough bass, I would lean towards sealed, and this has enough bass on its own with just one unit, I think, for almost everybody out there. Personally, if I could get my hands on 4 of these and put one in each corner of my room, I would never need anything else. I mean, that's more bass than I could ever hope for. I don't need double 21s or 24s. 4 of these things would be the end. I think actually 2 of them is likely in game as well. Unfortunately, I had to send this on to the next reviewer, but a little bit of my heart goes with the subwoofer because this thing is just absolutely tremendous. Can't recommend it enough. It's really great. All right, everybody, thank you so much for spending time. Remember, like, subscribe, ring the bell, and do all those things. And with that, I'll see you all in the next video.